about this whole Stefon Diggs situation?
I do. I guess I do.
Boy.
I just think that he and Cardi B have it's a terrific relationship. It's a love story for our times. And to me, I hate to see that thing go up in a puff of smoke, as it were. No, I care about it in the context of we have to do a little bit of admonishing of ourselves here, because we early on in the off season were told by folks around the team and organization that the Patriots are going to be very rigorous in who they brought in. No dinks, no pains in the ass. Then after they didn't get Chris Godwin, the bar dropped a little bit. And I think that as a group, or at least let's just speak for me, I got my mind around the fact that, okay, well, you do have to field a football team here, and you want to win. That's the goal of what you're going to do. And Mike Vrabel said himself in the pre-draft press conference that you can't have a team full of Boy Scouts, simply because you do have to have, with 53 guys, some differing kinds of people. And I started to look and say, I keep hearing how good Stefon Diggs will be as an influence on the players in the locker room because he's such a hard worker and he will bitch guys out if they're not playing well. And you eventually get to the point where you've embraced the idea of Stefon Diggs, who over the course of time has been kind of a pain in the ass in the NFL. So how will Vrabel work with this in the context of that? How will he talk about the sense of entitlement? Does a player like Stefon Diggs feel entitled not just to – everybody's entitled to go out on a Saturday. Does he feel entitled to say, it's none of your business, Mike, or what's the big deal, Mike, or sorry it was on video, as if, that's – if the video wasn't there, that would have been a great idea. Or does he say, look, it's a real big mistake, and if you want to tell me that that's my first and last strike, that's fine. I won't do it again. To me, that's what I want to see play out. That's what I'm very curious. If you put together, Ted Johnson, a case study and said to your prospective NFL head coach, here's your situation, and you laid everything out exactly as it is, the kind of player he's been, the kind of player he is, the situation your team's in, what you're trying to put out there, you could not come up with a more challenging situation, I think, in nuance than this one.
It's such a good point, Tom, and I do think this is kind of a big issue for Mike to have to navigate. And just listening to you and Phil and Jardy last night on Early Edition, it was a great discussion that you guys had last night about this topic, and you pondered rightfully, like, how does Steph Diggs explain this to Mike? Does he just own it, or does he kind of, try and weasel his way around it? But there's a lot of how does Mike dole out, kind of the punishment for this? You pondered that. But let me just ask you this. Do you think Mike told him to stay away from OTAs, or do you think Mike was not happy with him not showing up for OTAs, considering what had happened?
That's a great question. That would be full-on speculation by me, and honestly, I would guess that he probably took it off. But that's total guess on my part. I think that Vrabel probably would have welcomed him there. I think that's a total guess, because everything I've seen about Mike and everything you know about Mike and myself and all of us is that he would rather deal with something head on, face to face, in person. If he's going to bitch you out, he'd rather do that in person. I don't think that he's big on, wow, Stefon Diggs is at the field. It's a distraction. We can't get our work done, the way it was with Matthew Judon. It doesn't even come close to rising to that level. So was last year with Gerard. So I think that so that would be my thought. Mike would probably prefer to have him here to hash things out, but that's an outright and total guess, and maybe I'll try and figure that out.
Whatever goes on with the receivers almost doesn't matter, though, to a certain degree, Tom, if the quarterback is having issues getting him the ball. And obviously Drake Maye didn't have the kind of day that he had last week, 4 of 8 on the picks with the 8 passes. How has he looked in round 2 of the OTAs to you?
He's been uneven. His throwing has been uneven, Fitzy. The misses are not, it's a near miss just broken up by someone. It's not as if he is, vintage Tom Brady, 3 steps, balls out on time to somebody, and that guy's moving even if it's a shorter throw. There's a lot of processing I think he's doing. There's a lot of heat coming, as Vrabel pointed out yesterday. Every single snap is 3rd and 10, and the defense knows that because we're not going to run the ball in an OTA. So there is some buzzing the tower that goes on before he throws the ball, and he moves around. But he is having some wild misses. They're not near misses. They're related to movement. He'll roll a little bit and throw from that kind of like a shortstop flinging it to first kind of platform, which is not ideal for perfect accuracy, but he does have accuracy with it. We've seen him make those throws, but there just seems to be a lot of them. So I don't think it's a concern. I don't think it's a worry. It's certainly a concern if there's a regression to having sloppy mechanics, because Alex Van Pelt spent an inordinate amount of time on those last year.
Tom Curran, NBC Sports Boston, here with us on WEEI Afternoons. So we talked about Steph Diggs, but there's some other receivers that aren't off to a great spring and summer here. It seemed like Vrabel alluded to the fact that Kayshon Boutte might have been out of shape to start the spring yesterday. Then Javon Baker had a little incident where he was kind of celebrating, and Polk and Baker were in this video that I saw making the rounds in drills, just balls bouncing off their hands. How much is the rest of the wide receiver crew a concern right now?
I'll start with the one positive. Polk has not gotten on the field in team drills, but he looks to me like he did last year. Really friggin' good. I mean, he's fast, he's explosive, he's running extremely hard. He had a shoulder injury, so that's still being maintained. But I like the way Polk looks, and I like the way Polk looked last year. The bopping off the head, I wonder if that was Josh Dobbs related. I don't know. He has looked good to me otherwise. Baker was a fascinating situation yesterday. It was a throw from Woodbridge, the third string quarterback downfield, that Baker kind of pushed off on, came up with the catch, ran downfield all the way to the end zone as you would want. He wasn't necessarily celebrating as much as he just scored, and the offense was 60 yards away. So he didn't look to run back to the huddle for the next rep. He kind of just veered off on his own. Maybe they would have, for time's sake, just said, okay, you can get off, we'll run somebody else out there. But I think him making the decision on his own when no one had told him to take the next play off was something that Mike didn't love, and he made that point very clear. What was interesting, though, was after the practice, as we were huddling up to talk to players, and Vrabel had made a very loud and public issue of Baker turning off, Vrabel and Baker were walking off shoulder to shoulder, and you could tell that they were talking about that situation and why he wasn't looking for that type of thing. So it's not like that happened and Javon Baker is now persona non grata. He's trying to get these guys to understand the level of expectation, which is the same thing we were talking about last week when Drake Maye aborted a play and threw it in the ground, and it was made clear to him that that's not something that they're going to do. Finish the play. Don't just say, okay, this isn't working. So it's all very interesting because I think we all think Mike's a very good hire, and he's being presented with a number of interesting things that he has to negotiate that we could almost predict would happen as you come in with a bad team that's won 8 games in the last 2 seasons combined. All these things are rising up, and they predictably were going to.
Yeah, the way Mike handled that, Javon Baker, the way you describe it, it sounds very Parcellian to me. Break you down and then build you back up when no one's looking. But last question for me, Tom. Anything stand out with rookies? I know without pads, it's hard to really judge the O line and D line. But Kyle Williams, Craig Woodson, and I heard Phil Perry last night just loving Efton Chisholm. So any of the rookies standing out to you, drafted or undrafted?
Kyle Williams looks good. Made a very nice over-the-shoulder catch yesterday. Again, I'm so pissed at myself because there was a catch that Tyquan Thornton, I bet Andy remembers it. Tyquan Thornton made this over-the-shoulder sliding Willie Mays catch in 2022. Jalen Mills was so impressed, he stood there, stopped, and started clapping for the kid.
Yep.
So now every time I see one of those, I go, yeah, Tyquan Thornton did one of those too. So Kyle Williams made one of those kinds of catches. It was terrific. He's very fast. He runs with the early groups. So he looks good. Craig Woodson has been out there a lot. with the early groups. Duggar has been down. Milton Williams had is just a huge presence on the inside. And you mentioned one other. Oh, you can't really see with Campbell exactly. What's the dude's name?
Efton Chisholm or Lan Larison?
No. The defensive end from LSU.
Oh, Swinson. Braden.
Okay. I might be wrong then, because I think it was Calabon Chason. I don't know. Somebody was wearing 44. And he was
they're both from LSU. Yeah, they're both from LSU, so you're right, yes.
Chason does sound like an LSU kid.
Yep.
Hey, he was buzzing the tower. I was like, who's that? And Phil goes, it's Calabon Chason. I'm like, oh, of course it is. Tom, like he's wearing James Ahenabo's number.
Before we let you go, if we're going to do sort of the OTA minutia recap, so Terrell Williams, the defensive coordinator, still not out there, right?
Right.
So what does that look like? Is Vrabel running the defense? Who's kind of, what's that look like out there on the practice field?
The defense is being run by, the defensive group. I'm so offensive focused, I can't even tell you who's calling the plays.
I appreciate your honesty.
I mean, I could pretend I know which guy is directing the defense.
No
but
worries.
I'm watching McDaniels and Todd Downing, so I'm sorry. I should. That's an instance, Andy, where I'd go, Phil, who's running the defense?
I hear you. I used to have a guy like that. Hey, Paul Perillo, who's running the defense?
Could it
I
just
forgot
also
to pay
be
attention.
Vrabel, since he's basically in the huddle and running
could be
on and
Vrabel.
off the field
but
with
I don't
everybody,
know.
too?
He talked so much yesterday about not wanting to. He wants to be everywhere and talk to everybody and do different things that I'm guessing it's not him full time.
Good thing is, it's most of the veterans.
When they're doing the 11-on-11, which they're doing a fair amount of, or even 7-on-7, he's generally behind the offense or he's in with the defense. But they're actually doing substitutions and sending people off in personnel groups. So he wouldn't be calling out whatever set they were in necessarily. It's probably preordained what the sets are going to be. So he's not going to quarterback that. He's just going to oversee it and scream at people.
All right, Tom Curran, appreciate you talking to us. And learn a lesson from Stefon Diggs when you're out on your pontoon boat on the pond. No video cameras, no phones.
No phones.
Have
the
your
only
fun,
rule.
but just
Have
don't
your-
have it recorded.